The company team-building event was in full swing when Mark stood up, a cocky grin on his face after being chosen for a dare. His eyes scanned the room and landed on my girlfriend of 7 years, Clara. The dare was simple and brutal. He had to kiss her. I watched as he walked over, and to my surprise, Clara didn't pull away. She was clearly taken off guard, but as his lips met hers, her hand moved to the back of his head, holding him there as she kissed him back, with an intensity that silenced the entire room. All eyes swiveled in my direction, a thick, uncomfortable quiet settling over us as everyone waited for the inevitable explosion. They expected a scene, a shouting match, something dramatic. Instead, I started to clap, a slow, deliberate sound in the heavy silence. "Nice kiss," I said, my voice steady. "You should do it again." Clara's head snapped toward me, her body suddenly rigid. Mark, looking a little out of breath, had the audacity to smile at her and whisper loud enough for me to hear, "You taste just the same, Clara." Her expression soured, a flash of anger and confusion crossing her features as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Then, as quickly as it appeared, her composure returned. She pushed Mark away and turned to me, her voice laced with a practiced, almost believable innocence. "It was just a misunderstanding, Leo. I'm just friends with Mark. For a second, I mistook him for you." Given that Clara was the big boss, the founder and CEO of the company, no one dared to contradict her. A few sycophants even rushed to her defense, murmuring about how much she had to drink and how it wasn't surprising she might get people confused. I looked over at Mark, at his glistening lips, and the way his thick eyebrows and large eyes, which, I suppose, did bear a passing resemblance to my own, were fixed on me. He offered a challenging little smile, a silent message that screamed, "So what if you've been with her for 7 years? I'm back now, and she was always really mine." I smirked back at him, feeling a strange sense of detachment. "Well, since things are already like this," I said to the room at large, "should I go ahead and book you to a room with a nice big bed?" Clara's face hardened. "Leo, it was just a game," she said, her tone sharp. "Don't take it so seriously. Mark and I broke up a long time ago. We have no relationship now. He's new to the company, and I'm the only person he knows here. He has to rely on me. Can't you stop being so petty?" The air filled with the unspoken curiosity of our colleagues. We were all supposed to be professionals, individuals who had clawed our way up on our own merits. The idea that anyone, especially a man like Mark, couldn't survive in the workplace without someone to rely on was laughable. Mark himself let out a little chuckle. "Clara, how can you say that about Leo? He's not the type of guy to hold a grudge, right, Leo?" I didn't say a word, letting the silence hang. The strange looks from everyone around us confirmed what was already painfully clear. Clara was showing blatant favoritism toward Mark, and for reasons no one could comprehend, she, the one who was so obviously in the wrong, was the one acting indignant. I saw something in her eyes then, a familiar, knowing look that told me she was expecting me to lose my temper. In the past, whenever Mark's name came up, I was like a lit firecracker, and she had grown accustomed to it. She would watch my meltdowns from a cool, detached distance, only to later offer a casual gift or a hollow, "How are you?" And I, like a fool, would forgive her. I couldn't count the number of times we had fought over Mark since he had returned from abroad. Our biggest argument had me threatening to pack my bags and leave for good, only for her to text me back, asking where she had left her favorite necklace. Just like that, with a simple, dismissive question, she would win. During the cold wars that followed our fights, I would spend nights alone, sorting through my feelings, only to come running back to her with a dejected apology. In this relationship, I had loved too much, and from the beginning I was bound to be the loser. It's an old story. Whoever falls in love first is inevitably at a disadvantage. Back in college, Clara was a campus legend, a beauty so striking that it wasn't uncommon for art students to stop her on the quad just to ask for her contact information. She turned every single one of them down without a second thought. Then one day, this untouchable goddess walked up to me, a complete nobody, and asked, "Want to go out?" I couldn't believe it. It felt like I had woken up from a dream to find a winning lottery ticket in my hand. I was deliriously happy, but also terrified that it was all a fragile fantasy. Seeing her number in my phone was the only thing that made it feel real. I was so worried she would change her mind that I spent every day trying to weave my life into hers, sharing every detail, bringing her meals, doing anything I could to strengthen our bond. Yet she always remained cool and aloof. I told myself that was just her personality, that larger-than-life people were distant with everyone. I truly believed that if I just kept showering her with passion, her heart would eventually thaw. It turned out she wasn't cold to me because she was aloof. She was cold to me because all her warmth was reserved for someone else. A nudge from a colleague pulled me from my thoughts, and I realized the entire party was still watching me. Clara's voice cut through the air, stern and commanding. "Leo, if you're going to throw a fit, do it at home. Don't ruin the mood for everyone here." I had no desire to be the third wheel in their reunion. "I think I'll just head home now," I said, not bothering to look at Clara's face, which I knew would be dark enough to drip ink. As I walked toward the exit, I heard Mark's concerned voice behind me. "Clara, do you think Leo is mad at me again?" And I heard her gentle reassurance. "No, it's just his odd temper. Don't worry about it." Without my presence to cast a shadow, the party immediately livened up again. As I closed the door behind me, the last thing I saw was Clara and Mark linking arms to toast each other, looking more like a loving couple than I ever had with her in public. Under the guise of friendship, they were free to relive their romance, constantly testing the limits of my patience in subtle ways. When it was chilly, it would be Mark wearing Clara's blazer. It would be Mark in the passenger seat of her car, feeding her snacks as she drove. They handled it all so smoothly, and whenever I got upset, they would tell me I was overthinking things. That night, I walked out of the hotel and into the biting wind. The cold air slapped against my face, and it felt like it was blowing away the heavy weight that had settled in my heart. I switched off my phone, stuffed it deep into my pocket, buttoned my coat up to my chin, and walked into the chilling breeze. It was in that moment, for the first time, that I realized maybe, just maybe, I could stop loving Clara. I went back to the villa, the first piece of property Clara had bought after her company took off. We had designed it together, pouring our shared vision into every wall and window until it looked exactly as it did now. On the living room table were the fruits I loved most, and on the shelf next to the couch were the books she adored. I had already come to think of this place as my permanent home, loving it almost as much as I loved her. I let out a small, self-deprecating laugh. They were in love. They didn't need my love cluttering up the place. I went upstairs, took a long shower, and collapsed into bed. Around 3 a.m, I was woken by noises from downstairs. Clara was back. I had half expected her not to come home at all. Usually, when she returned late and drunk from some work function, I would have left a light on for her in the living room. I would always be there, ready to make her some hangover soup and run a hot bath the moment she walked in. I suppose the darkness threw her off. She stumbled and cursed under her breath. A moment later, she pushed open the bedroom door, probably braced for me to start yelling hysterically. Instead, she was met with absolute silence. For once, she was the one who seemed surprised. I remained perfectly still, so calm that it didn't even feel like me. Clara could sense something was wrong. She stood by the bed, the reek of alcohol wafting off her. "Leo," she called my name. I kept my eyes closed, pretending to be fast asleep. She stared down at me for a few long minutes before snorting in disgust and staggering back out of the room, slamming the door so hard the whole house seemed to shake. I knew she was furious that I had ignored her. She could be as mad as she wanted. She was used to me always being the one to try and make things right. But I was done. The next morning, I was finishing my own breakfast when Clara came downstairs, rubbing her temples. A throbbing headache was the usual price she paid for a night of drinking. I used to feel so bad for her, which is why I'd learned to make a dozen different kinds of hangover soup. Without even looking at me, she gave an order. "Make another sandwich. Mark really likes them." The request was so absurd, I almost laughed. She was truly treating me like a servant in their rekindled romance. She sat down at the dining table, her eyes scanning the bare surface. There was nothing there for Mark, not even breakfast for herself. She watched me as I moved around the kitchen, carrying empty plates to the sink. "I got drunk last night," she finally said, a rare attempt at an explanation. "Mark drove me back. He drives so fast, we almost crashed." I was packing my lunch for work and wasn't listening very closely. "Oh, that's great," I replied without thinking, my voice flat and dismissive. My lack of reaction clearly unnerved her. In the past, if I'd heard they had nearly been in an accident, I would have insisted on taking her for a full-body checkup, practically wanting to bubble wrap her to keep her safe. This time, I couldn't bring myself to care. "Stop messing around and make us breakfast," she snapped, her patience gone. Then, with a heavy sigh, she added, "Fine, you can ride in the passenger seat today." She said it with an air of resignation, as if she were magnanimously tossing me a bone. To her, my behavior was just me fooling around, acting out. I stopped what I was doing and finally looked at her. Ever since Mark had joined the company, she had been picking him up every morning, leaving me to argue with him over who got the front seat. Clara had always made the final call. Mark rides shotgun because he gets carsick. It never seemed to cross her mind that I might get carsick too. Now she was offering me the seat like it was some grand favor, but I didn't want it anymore. "Nah, I'll take the subway to work," I said. She fell silent, probably trying to remember the last time I had even ridden with her. I'd started taking the subway weeks ago. Waiting for Mark to get ready every morning was consistently making us late, which delayed my own projects. Besides, I couldn't stand watching them flirt in the rearview mirror. I went back to cleaning up as she kept talking. "I might be home late tonight," she announced. "Okay." "It's Mark's birthday, and he doesn't have many friends here. He invited me to go out for a drink." "Okay." I was about to walk out the door when she shouted my name. "Leo!" I turned back, genuinely confused by her behavior. Disbelief was written all over her face. "Why didn't you stop me this time?" she asked. I cocked my head and checked my watch. "I'm going to be late. We can talk about it when I get back." I saw the surprise lingering on her face as I left. That was always her move. Whenever we had an issue we couldn't resolve, she would act nonchalant and find an excuse to leave, abandoning me in the middle of a one-man show. I would be left to argue with the empty air, trying to get her attention, but she would be gone, sometimes not even bothering with an excuse. Closing the door behind me, it suddenly hit me. Avoiding problems actually feels pretty good. No wonder she did it all the time. That afternoon, Clara treated the entire office to dessert. My colleagues were buzzing, guessing that we must have landed a new project or that she was celebrating some milestone. I chuckled to myself, they were way off. It was Mark's birthday, and this was just her way of celebrating him under the guise of a company-wide treat. None of it mattered to me. A little later, a text from her popped up on my phone. "Did you like the cake?" I paused, surprised. I figured she must have texted the wrong number. I glanced at the box on my desk. It was mango cake, and the cream had started to melt. I noticed it was from my favorite dessert shop, an expensive place with a notoriously long queue. She had really spared no expense for Mark. I ignored the message. Another one came through. Your favorite? Blueberry flavor. I snorted. She had definitely texted the wrong person. A blueberry cake had been handed to me initially, but Mark had come to my desk and swapped it. Whoa, where's my blueberry cake? He had said with fake surprise. Oh, here it is. He'd tossed the mango cake onto my desk. Clara picked this out just for me. It's her signature flavor, you know? I hadn't touched it all day, and I certainly couldn't eat it now. I'm allergic to mango. I picked up the box and dropped it into the trash can. As I looked up, I saw Clara standing a few feet away, her eyes piercing into me. She glanced from my face to the trash can, her lips pressed into a thin, angry line. Her office was on a much higher floor. She rarely ever came down to my department. I wondered what she was doing here, but Mark soon answered that question by linking his arm with hers. Clara, I told you to wait for me in the garage, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. It's bad optics for you to come to the main office like this. The room filled with disapproving murmurs. The people on my team were people I had personally trained, and they clearly didn't appreciate Mark's condescending attitude. Clara swept a cold gaze around the room, and an immediate silence fell. She left without another word, Mark in tow. She didn't come home that night. In the past, I would have worried, calling her endlessly, demanding to know where she was. This time, I didn't. I just went to bed and went to work the next day as usual. I hadn't expected her not to show up at work either, but the office was abuzz with the news that neither she nor Mark had come in. That night, she finally came home. I was just finishing dinner and heading upstairs when she grabbed my hand, stopping me. Aren't you going to ask where I've been? She questioned. I looked at her calmly. How would you like me to ask? Her temper flared suddenly. Leo, you weren't like this before. I thought about it for a moment and nodded. You're right. You used to be like me before. She looked down, and her tone softened. I drank too much yesterday and slept at a hotel. Nothing happened between Mark and me. She finished the sentence and looked up at me, a hint of accusation in her eyes. I drank so much and you didn't even bother to call me once. I wasn't sure what kind of game she was playing. She used to hate it when I called her repeatedly. Her feigned look of guilt was almost comical. The next day, I received a message from Mark. It was a photo of a medical report, the diagnosis a chronic illness that would require long-term treatment. It was accompanied by a picture of Clara at the hospital with him. I froze. So that's where she was yesterday. Not at work, but at the hospital with Mark. While a part of me was shocked, another part just accepted it. Something had been brewing between them for a while now, hadn't it? I replied to Mark's text. We were just together the night before last, and today you get this diagnosis? That's quick. The reply was almost instantaneous. Can't you read the date on the report? Let me remind you, it was our anniversary. My mind raced. What was he talking about? Clara had made time for me on our anniversary. Even though she never cared for such occasions, she had made an exception that one time. I had been sick with a fever and had gone to bed early. She had shown a rare patience with me, staying by my side, giving me medicine, and wiping the sweat from my brow. Even though I was sick, my heart had felt so warm and full. I thought that after all these years, I had finally broken through her shell, that she was finally starting to show me real affection. But I remembered waking up in the middle of the night, thirsty, and finding the space beside me empty. I had called out for her but got no answer. I assumed she had just gone downstairs for some water and soon fell back asleep. Was it that night? The memory that had seemed so sweet was now tainted with a bitter aftertaste. It turned out she had left my side to go see Mark. "You'll congratulate me, right, Leo?" Mark texted again. I ignored it, focusing instead on the project I was close to completing, slowly pushing the entire incident out of my mind. That was until lunchtime, when Clara brought Mark to my desk. She slammed her phone down with a thunderous crack that startled the entire office. On the screen were the 2 pictures Mark had sent me. "Leo, did you do this?" she asked, her voice shaking with rage. I was confused. How could I have possibly worsened his medical condition? She took a deep breath, clarifying her accusation. "I'm talking about you posting Mark's private medical information on the company forum." My confusion deepened. Why on earth would I do that? It had nothing to do with me. I had no motive. "If I didn't do it, who did?" she demanded. "Someone told me only you knew about it." "You knew about it too, didn't you?" I countered. "He obviously knew about it. Why do you automatically assume it was me?" "Who else would want to ruin him so badly?" I snorted. "Why do you think I would? You trust him blindly, but you'll suspect me unconditionally." I wouldn't accept the blame for this. Clara was about to say more, but Mark cut her off, his voice soft and wounded. "Leo, I felt helpless about my situation. Besides Clara, I don't know anyone else in the company. I just wanted to share it with you." I scoffed. "You sure know how to pick your confidants. Couldn't you find your mom or dad to share with?" His face turned pale, and he whispered in disbelief. "Leo, I considered you a friend." Clara couldn't stand it anymore. "You have no idea what he's been through," she seethed. "And you treat him like this? How can you be so ruthless?" Ruthless. After 7 years together, that was her assessment of me. "Delete the post by the end of the day," she said, her voice turning to ice, "or you're out of this company." After they left, I slumped into my seat. The post wasn't mine to delete. How could I possibly take it down? She was actually going to fire me. This company wasn't just hers. My sweat and effort were mixed into its foundation. When she started the business, I was right there with her. We ate stale bread together and lived in a tiny basement apartment. After her first venture failed, I worked 3 different jobs to help pay off her debts. I had been there from the very beginning of the project department, working my way up to manager. Then, overnight, she appointed Mark as the deputy manager, letting him take a shortcut up the ladder I had spent years climbing. I finally understood. She wanted to kick me out to make way for him. My colleagues gathered around, offering words of support. I thanked them and sent them back to their desks. I didn't stay sad for long. Tomorrow was the weekend, the perfect time to move out. I had already found a new apartment online and finalized the details with the landlord. Most of my things were already packed. I decided to leave everything behind except for my clothes. A clean break was necessary. Clara didn't come home that night either. She had plenty of other properties to stay in, unlike me, who was left guarding this empty villa alone. But I wasn't going to do that anymore. On Monday morning, a text from Clara arrived. "Why haven't you deleted the post? It won't end well for you if you don't." I looked at the message and paused. It seems she doesn't love Mark that much, leaving him hanging like this for 2 days. I heard the online comments tearing him apart were brutal. Finally, I replied. "It wasn't me, so how can I delete it? Also, did I forget to break up with you? Let me fix that. Clara, let's break up." Before I even made it to the office doors, I could hear her angry voice echoing down the hall. "Where is Leo? Why isn't he here yet?" The moment I walked in, her yell made me stumble, and I almost fell over. Luckily, my new colleague, Sophie, was there to steady me. "Are you okay? You look pale," she said with genuine concern. I shook my head, refusing her offer to go home and rest. Seeing us, Clara shot up from her chair, glaring at our linked arms. "Why are you two together? Leo, come here." I nodded at her and then walked over to the section reserved for the H group. Clara stared, her eyes wide with disbelief. "What do you mean? That's the H group's seating area." I nodded again. "Then I'm in the right spot." "You're siding with H group against me?" Sophie had always been Clara's biggest business rival, and it was no shock that she was surprised to see me on the other side. "I quit last Friday," I stated calmly. "I would have been fired anyway if I didn't take down that post. You owe me severance pay." Clara was speechless. The bidding meeting began. Mark led Clara's team, while I was in charge for H Group. As expected, H Group won the bid easily. Mark's presentation was a stuttering mess. He was clearly out of his depth. Afterward, he stopped me. "Leo, why did you move to H Group? You're breaching your non-compete agreement." I crossed my arms. "Thanks to you, I never signed a non-compete, just a regular employment contract." Clara had never imagined I would leave, and neither had I, so we'd never bothered with one. Clara stepped up, her face a mask of fury. Sophie instinctively moved to stand slightly in front of me. Seeing this, Clara clenched her jaw. "Fine," she repeated 3 times. "Fine, Leo, don't you regret this?" With that, she dragged Mark away. We ran into them again in the garage. "Leo, you've been having an affair with her, haven't you?" Clara screamed, slamming her car door. "That's why you left so suddenly." I glanced at her, my voice cool. "If that's what you want to think, I can't stop you." My calm demeanor only made her angrier. It turned out she couldn't handle being on the receiving end of such treatment. Sophie chuckled beside me. "Don't misjudge," she said to Clara, raising an eyebrow. "I reached out to Leo many times over the years, but he always said no. He was incredibly loyal to you and your company. I should really thank you for giving me this chance. I could have never poached him without your help." Clara was stunned into silence. Through the rearview mirror of Sophie's car, I saw her still standing there, frozen in place, as we drove away. It took her 3 days to realize I had actually moved out of the villa. Finding me wasn't difficult for her. Even though I had blocked all her contacts, she was waiting for me outside my new apartment building. She tried to defend herself, but I answered coldly, "It doesn't matter anymore." I turned to look out the window, and she panicked, grabbing my hand. "What doesn't matter?" "Neither the truth nor you matter to me anymore," I said. Her voice cracked. "Don't joke around, Leo. We'll get married. We'll be a family." For 7 years, that was all I had wanted. But she always had an excuse. First her career, then our unstable foundation. Then Mark showed up. She had never once promised me marriage. I had followed her willingly, hoping one day she would. Now I knew she and Mark had feelings for each other all along, and I had chosen to let go. I pulled my hand from her grasp. "We're not getting married." Her expression froze. "You're heartless," she whispered. "Why are you doing this? Is it because of Mark? I told you we're not involved." I remained calm. "Then why didn't you clear up the rumors about you two on the company forum?" "It was about his reputation," she cried. "His reputation matters, but mine doesn't? So you still think I'm the one who posted about him?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the text messages from Mark, the ones with the photo from the hospital on our anniversary. She wasn't surprised, which meant she already knew he had contacted me. "That night in October, our anniversary, where were you?" I asked. She avoided my eyes. "You blamed me for putting his information on the forum," I continued, "without even checking. You told me I had no idea what he'd been through. How is any of this my fault?" The truth was finally out, and she was furious. But in the end, we parted on bad terms. Later, I learned that the IP address from the forum post had been traced back to Mark himself. He was the one who had posted it. The tech guy who uncovered the truth came to me, and I helped him find a new position. Lately, quite a few people from my former company had reached out. Most of my old team followed me when I left, and now Clara's project department was just Mark, standing alone. The security at my new place is solid, so I didn't expect to see her again. But there she was, waiting outside my office building as I left one evening. "Leo," she pleaded. "I swear I didn't know Mark posted that. Can you forgive me?" I shoved my hands in my pockets. "Didn't know or didn't want to know. You didn't bother to check because you didn't want to ruin your perfect image of him." I tried to step around her, but she grabbed my arm. "Just like you don't trust me," she said, her eyes red. "Familiar, isn't it?" I replied. "You treated me this way for years. Now that the tables are turned, you're unhappy." She stared at me, searching for a trace of the love I once had for her, but she found nothing. "Please come back, Leo," she begged, her voice breaking. "I promise I won't keep in touch with him anymore. I don't love him. The only person I love is you." It was the first time in 7 years she had ever said those words, and it was only after I had stopped loving her. I remembered something I'd once overheard a business partner ask her. If she loved Mark, why did she stay with me? She had said that when Mark left her, he wasn't willing to endure hardships, so she found someone who would, just to prove a point to him. I was the one who endured the hardships, and now that she had won, I was no longer needed for the enjoying life chapter. "I don't love you anymore, Clara," I said, shrugging her hand off my arm. I walked away without looking back. Our 7 years of love ended so quietly. It hasn't really affected my life all that much. I just moved, found a new job. Life goes on. At first, I was angry. I couldn't understand why they had treated me that way. But I've made my peace with it. I chose her, and I chose to love her. Besides, working with Clara taught me a great deal. Without that experience, I never would have reached the position I have today. Her company is in shambles. Without my team and me, several major projects have failed, and they're facing massive penalties. I heard they can't secure any funding and will likely have to file for bankruptcy. As for Mark, after he was let go, his history was leaked online. It turns out this wasn't his first time being the other man. His entire history, from college to his time abroad, was filled with similar affairs. He became a social pariah. Desperate, he went to Clara for help. That's when she finally realized her sainted white moonlight was a complete illusion. They had a massive fight, and she pushed him down a flight of stairs. He's paralyzed now. Dave's family sued, and Clara was sentenced to 10 years in prison. The other day I passed by her old office building and saw workers taking down the company sign. It stirred something in me. Sophie came and stood beside me, crossing her arms. "What's up? Can't let go?" she teased. Her light-hearted jab washed away any lingering nostalgia. "Well, that's that," I smirked. "The old company's gone. Now you don't have to worry about me leaving, huh?" Sophie laughed. "True. So, you want to go grab that drink we talked about? I heard you just snagged another huge project." That project was one I had won from Clara's company, a final nail in its coffin. I raised an eyebrow at Sophie. "Yeah, let's do it. I've been hurt by love, but I'm not afraid of it. I still have the ability to chase new horizons and the courage to embrace whatever comes next."